Hi, welcome to SBDC TCA at New Mexico Tech Cybersecurity Awareness Series. This is the first of our 3 series that we will have this month. This month we are celebrating Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Today we will be doing a cybersecurity for small businesses. We have next week, we will be having a presentation by CISA, which stands for Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and their presentation will be on the cybersecurity threat landscape. And then on October 24th, we will have Alethea McInerney from Apex, which is part of our SBDC centers. She will be presenting on the cybersecurity NIST SP 800-171 R2, which is what our contractors have to be compliant with to be able to work with the government. So these are our 3 series that we will be presenting this month. Again, I thank you for attending. The way I am planning to move this webinar along is first I will give you an overview of my TCA center here at New Mexico Tech. Then we will jump into the webinar. We will go over some terminology. Then I'm going to talk to you about several government agencies that have been designated to promote cybersecurity awareness, and they have a lot of resources for our small businesses, our innovators, and our residents of New Mexico, and along with everybody else's state. So we will go through that. And then after my presentation, because of our program, the SBDC, which provides free confidential counseling to our residents of New Mexico, we have a survey just to keep us compliant. So I will have a survey that I would like you all to participate. And then we will have a Q&A after that. So I'm going to go ahead and start on our presentation. I'm going to give you a little introduction about the TCA here at New Mexico Tech. But first of all, I would like to thank Christopher Garcia, who is also part of the SBDC at Valencia County. And Christopher helps me with all my presentations, and he's just wonderful. And I'd like to give him a great shout out for all his assistance. So SBDC is part of the SBA Small Business Administration umbrella at the federal level. SBDCs are at the state level. Here in New Mexico, we have approximately 19 centers. We have 3 special centers, and my center is one of the specialized centers. It's called the Technology Commercialization Accelerator. I am here at New Mexico Tech. My center focuses on intellectual property, which includes patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets. And then also part of my requirements are to provide cybersecurity awareness and along with counseling regarding cybersecurity counseling. But the way my center works is you can call me up and you'll get my information at the end of this webinar. You can call me up, we'll schedule a meeting, and we can work through with your idea if it has to do with intellectual property or cybersecurity. The mission of the SBDCs is to grow strong businesses and skilled entrepreneurs. So that is our goal here. So now we will go ahead and start with our presentation. So some of the terminology that we're going to hear about today, I'm going to go through it. And so cyber is a big word right now, and you'll hear it all over the place. It has to relate, it's related to the internet, and it involves computers and computer networks, anything that any device that you use to access the internet. So that includes your phones, your iPads, your computers, your systems, your networks, anything that you use the internet for. So that's cyber. And then cybersecurity is the protection of your computer systems and networks, and it's protecting you from any digital attacks. The adversaries are out there to either get your information. So we try to teach you skills on being cyber secure on the internet. A cyber attack is when an unauthorized user tries or gets access to your computer or computer network in order to steal your data or to damage your software or hardware, or even to disrupt your services that you provide. So they may try to stop your business. That's a cyber attack. And then phishing is a big word you hear about, and it is an email method used to attempt to obtain your credentials so then they can get into your computer system. And right now, nowadays, phishing is the #1 way a hacker can get into one's system. So it's important to be able to identify phishing and make sure you're not clicking on any of those buttons that comes from an email from anybody you do not know who's sending it. Ransomware is software that gets access to your system. It may encrypt your data. It may lock you out of your devices or systems, and they may demand a ransom to be paid. You don't know if you're going to pay that ransom, or if you do pay it, they say that they will provide a key to get back to your system. So that's ransomware, where it locks up your system. A virus is an unauthorized software running on your system with the intent to break the system or allow hackers to your system. So you've heard about viruses. An antivirus is software that identifies viruses running on your system. And it either quarantines the virus or it actually uninstalls the bad software. And malware is any type of malicious software that is designed to cause harm to computers and servers and or devices. And then the big word here, data breach, is when your data is stolen or either sold to the dark web or is published on a hacker's website. So that's when they get access to your data. And if hacked is when you get notifications that someone has your data and they may be requesting money to release your system. So these are some of the terminology that you hear nowadays. So now I'm going to go into one of the first 3 agencies, government agencies, that I'm going to talk to you about. And NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST creates cybersecurity standards. They have been tasked to create cybersecurity standards, guidelines, and best practices for the U.S. industry, federal agencies, private and public businesses. So they have come up with what they call frameworks. And frameworks are, they address either like your data privacy, they address cybersecurity, and they give you steps on what you should do to help implement cybersecurity safety protocol processes in place so you can be more cyber secure than not installing these processes in place. So the first one, they call them frameworks. The first one has to deal with data, and it's called the privacy risk. We will go through this a little in detail, but I did give you the link on this presentation. And the reason I did this and I put the links on there is because you will get a copy of this presentation after we probably by this afternoon, you'll get a copy of this presentation. So the first one is privacy framework, which has to do with data. The second one has to do with cybersecurity framework, which has to do with your devices. A third one that they talk about and have set up policies for is called the NIST framework. And this has to deal with people that are actually studying cybersecurity who actually are coding to develop programs, and they have to develop standards to make sure that there's programs are written with care so cybersecurity, so people cannot get into them. And then the NIST SP 800-171 R2 framework is what contractors to the government have to be compliant with. Our class on October 24th will be focusing on this framework for contractors. If you are a contractor for the government, it is recommended that you take it. Aletha McInerney, who's probably online with us, will be our presenter, and she will step you through all that whole process. So on the privacy framework that we talk about, these are the steps that have to, that one should take in order to make sure that you're getting your systems cyber secure, okay? And so on the privacy framework, what the first step to do is to do an inventory, identify all your data that you are processing. Again, the privacy has to do with your data that you're collecting. So identify all the data that you are processing from collection to disposal. This could include your customer information, your suppliers' information, your human resources information. And so identify it and go through it, go, why am I collecting this? Because if you are collecting data, you need to protect it. So you need to make sure that the data that you are collecting meets, some kind of requirements. You have to govern your data that you're collecting. So that's the next step, govern. So if you are working with personal information on medical records, then you have to be HIPAA compliant. So that's an obligation. If you are working with student data, then that is a FERPA regulation, and you have to be compliant with that. So you need to know why you're collecting your data. If you're making it for the HIPAA requirements, for FERPA, other requirements, you may have to, you should know why you're collecting your data, identify it. And then, now that you know what you have, control it. Who has, why are you collecting it? Are you meeting your requirements that you have to do it? And then you have to protect it. You have your data, you're collecting it, now protect it. Who has access to it? Are they supposed to have access to it? What's the software that you're running on? Do you do regular backups? Do you have policies in place that you're disposing your data and also your hardware? So this is part of the protecting it. And then the final step is communicating. You need to communicate with your employees on your processing activities, come up with a plan. And so the communication includes a response data breach plan. You need to come up with a plan in case you do get hacked and you do get your data breached. There are regulations that you need to follow to make sure that your data that you have, and if breached, you need to notify your customers. So that's why you should identify the data you have, govern it, and control it and protect it, and then come up with a response plan. So that is one of the frameworks that NIST has come up with. And if you push that link that I sent on the previous slide, you're going to get this documentation. And this is, instead of going to the websites and pulling this information, I just did a screenshot. That way, if my Zoom messed up or something like that, we would still just have the screenshots. So again, it talks about, they call it ready, set, go. Okay, this sounds like people who have been fighting fires and they get it ready, set, go. You have to evacuate. But anyway, they came up ready, set, go. So you identify your data. you govern it, you make sure that you're compliant with HIPAA, FERPA, whatever standards you have to be compliant with. And then you control it and you protect it. And this just goes through on some steps. And then you communicate. The communication's the big deal here. It's come up with a response plan. And then continue to move forward with your business. The second cybersecurity framework that we're going to talk about, it has to do with cyber devices, your systems, your networks, any kind of device you use for accessing your small business systems. And again, you're going to have pretty much the same stuff. This is the second version and just came out this year. And so they have added govern here, the yellow part. And again, you're going to talk about identifying, protecting, and then here you're going to talk about detecting and responding and recovering. So again, I cut and paste from websites. So I don't have to go to the websites to show you all the documentation, and my presentation will have the links to those websites. So again, here you're governed. And what they're presenting here is bringing in your managers, and you're trying to get to a cultural cyber cultural awareness environment. And so you need to get your people, either you're the owner of the business, or you have your managers or directors or CEOs. They need to get on board too. Again, you have to be compliant with any agencies that you're working with. Again, they talk about identifying. You do an inventory. You do an inventory on your data. You do an inventory on your devices, your phone, people who have access to your systems. Make sure, and the reason you do this is because you want to make sure that you're covering all your different areas to be compliant. And then you protect it. And so some forms of protection are doing, you talk about password hygiene, making sure that you have good password hygiene, making sure that you back up your databases, also implement the multi-authentication. So you have double logins, you protect your devices, you protect your data, running antivirus software. That's a protection. And then right here, they talk about detecting. So you have to watch your systems. That way, if anything you see, like your network system, if you see something leaving the system or other people trying to log in, you check your systems. That way you can run your software, your malware, not your malware, your antivirusware, to see if anything's running on your system. So you want to be watching your devices because you want to detect if anything's out there. And then if you have a data breach or intrusion, or anybody comes in, you want to be able to respond. So it's real important to have an incident response plan in place. What are you going to do if this happens? What are you going to do when you get that big splash on your screens? What's the very, very first thing? If you have a big group of people and you have an IT department, you may be contacting your IT first. But this should be in your response plan. Who is the first person to contact? If you have cyber insurance, some of them require that you contact them first. Another thing you might have to do is contact your lawyer first. You contact your supervisor if you get it. That response plan should be communicated to everybody in your department, and you need to come up with that plan and determine how that's going to work. And then If you do the final step that they talk about is recover. Okay, so your data's been hacked, it's been breached, your computer's messed up if you're a small business. How are you going to recover? You have your backups that you do weekly, you have a monthly, you have a backup stored off site. What happens here on the respond and the recover process is going to be a reflection on your small business. And so you should have a plan in place because you're going to want to continue as a small business. And you want your reputation to stay on the positive side. And so the way you respond and recover is going to affect that. So it's important that I'm going to emphasize it again, that you come up with an incident response plan. Okay. So that has to do with NIST. And now I'm going to go to another agency. And this is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA. CISA will be presenting next week, October 17th. We finally have a group here in New Mexico for CISA, and the guy's name is Andrew, and he's great. And his role, he's been working with the different county agencies for the election to make sure all their systems are compliant and safe. But he's available for us small businesses also. And so I do recommend that you register for that class for next Tuesday. So what CISA promotes is the cybersecurity culture awareness, getting your higher ups involved in the cybersecurity awareness, promoting it. That way we all have safe systems. And then they also promote this cross-sector cybersecurity performance goals. Again, they talk about governing, identifying, protecting, detecting, watching your systems, responding and recover. It's the same method over, and you hear that over and over. You need to know what you have. You need to protect it. You need to watch out. You need to detect it. And then you have to have a plan in place in case you do need to respond, because you do want to maintain your reputation as a small business. But what I like here at the CISA is they have checklists for different items out there. So this is one of the checklists. So they give you this list, and the website right here has this, and you can download it and you can go through it and determine if you did your inventory, when you did your inventory, did you update your software, what software are you running, who has access to it, and it has a checklist. This is a good, helpful checklist that they have. So I recommend you guys using that. I don't know if Andrew will be recommending that you use it, but I do. And then the Federal Trade Commission. They have a big program for the cybersecurity for small businesses, but they don't just talk about computers. They talk about your business. So do you have so some of our people have remote access, right? So everybody gets online and works from home, but you have to make sure that those people logging in, that they have maybe a VPN to get in to run their GLs or to access their data. That a VPN would be a great access. Make sure and educate them about using free networks down at the coffee shop. Free networks have a higher risk of getting attacked because they're open. If you have a closed access, that's so much better, and they promote that. The Federal Trade Commission promotes that. Also, your physical security, your offices. If you have multiple offices and you work with records, do you have a process in place that you make sure that people are keeping their desk clean of personal information, especially if they have clients coming in? Do you have your data locked up? Do you have maybe your servers locked up, or maybe have access, a controlled access to them? And then also on your vendors that you work with, do they have, are they cyber secure? Are they following some kind of policies that you need to know about? How close are their systems? Another thing that they promote is when you're working with your, if you have a website and you're working with your host, your web host, what's their privacy policy? If you are doing e-commerce on your website and you have, you're collecting transactions, do you store that that card? Do you, and because they're hosting you, that information is stored on their servers. So what is their privacy policy? You need to check that out. And then cyber insurance is a new deal. It's not a new deal. A couple of years ago, I took a class on cybersecurity here at Tech, and I called, they told us that we were talking about cyber insurance. So I called one of the insurance companies and I was like, are you guys offering cyber insurance? And they weren't at that time, and now they are. But it costs, sometimes they require you to meet certain specifications. Are you doing your inventory? Are you running a VPN? Are you running a program manager? Those may be mandates for you to be able to get cybersecurity. And then sometimes they require that you reach out to them first if you have a data breach. So you need to, cyber insurance is available. You need to look into it. And also you need to follow their policies that they have in place. At the Federal Trade Commission, they have a lot of flyers that have to do with cybersecurity. They talk about the basics, the web, the phishing, ransomware. These documents are available. You can download them and display them in your cafeterias or whatever you might have, or send them to the links to your employees just so you educate them. And this is coming from the Federal Trade Commission. And then also the Federal Trade Commission is where one would report fraud, or if you have had identity theft. And so you report it there, and then they're able to put it out to the different agencies around the states, wherever you're at, and help you with your fraud or any of your identity theft there. And the final entity I'm going to talk to is called the America's Small Business North Star. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that all the SBDCs are at the state level. So we have a group of people from all the different states, and that's and we work on cybersecurity issues. And mostly we provide resources for the small businesses regarding cybersecurity. They too also have a toolkit regarding your resources, do's and don'ts, ransomware information, and they have a checklist. When I did a cut and paste from the website, that page didn't come through with the checklist, but they have a very good checklist to make sure that you are doing the correct steps to be cyber secure. One of their handouts is a mobile device security. Everybody has a cell phone nowadays. You can go through here and go through this checklist and make sure that you're being a little safer on your cell phone. So This is cybersecurity awareness theme is to secure the world. Okay, and so that was the same one as last year. So they just did it for 2 years. But what they really emphasize is using strong passwords or a password manager. I call it password hygiene. Make sure you have good password hygiene. Again, this is that protection step in all the different frameworks, resources that we have out there. They talked about protecting. And so you have strong passwords. You enable multi-factor authentication. This makes sure that you are the person logging in. They send you a code, and then you have to enter that code, and that's the multi-factor authentication. And then because phishing is the number 1 reason systems get hacked, you need to educate your employees, educate yourself on recognizing and reporting phishing. So we all get tons and tons of junk mail, okay? But what you need to recognize on your emails is sometimes the imposters come in and they may pretend that they are your boss, because they can change the names like that. And it may be an email address that looks pretty close to your business address, but check who is sending you the information. A phishing usually has some misspelling. Maybe the English isn't correct. If you get a phishing and maybe you think it is your boss, don't respond to that email. Call them up and go, did you call me? And did you really want this report with all this information on it? Go ahead and call and check. If you get something like from IRS or anything, and you're not expecting them, reach out and contact them but not by email, not responding to that email. Get on the phone and call them. Or even if in your office, if you get, your boss says, go buy gift cards, 500 gift cards immediately, that's probably not correct, but call them, make sure that they're, this is part of recognizing and knowing that there's been phishing around. Do not click on those. Click here. You want this. Click here. They're phishing. They're looking to get your credentials, your login credentials. So then they can get into your system and take over it. And then updating your software. Every time you see that little orange button down by your start buttons, make sure you update your data. The reason you're getting updates is because there has been a hack, or somebody has been able to get in an open spot in some of the computer source, the programs. And so the updates are releases that say, okay, it's time to update. We have all these threats coming through. We're going to close them up. We fixed them. So make sure that you update your software all the time, that you, most of the time, make sure that you're getting your updates and your software is running up to date. And then what we promote here is train your users, make sure that your you're building that cyber secure readiness culture. It's real important nowadays. And encrypt and back up your data. That way, if you do get hacked and you need to recover, you have a copy of your latest data. And storing it, if you encrypt it, that's a form of, that's an extra step you do to make sure that the adversaries that get your data cannot read it. Okay, it messes it up, it puts some encryption in there. So encrypt and back up your data, and also test your restores. If you back it up and then you don't test your restores, and you have to recover and you didn't test it and your backup didn't work, then you're still in the water. You need to make sure that you test your backups. And maybe you have an old computer laying around and you restore your backup to make sure it's working, just as a precautionary step. And then another thing is like sometimes you get a server or and the manufacturer puts a username like admin or an admin username, and it's a default one, and they put it on all their servers that they manufacture, and they put the default password on it. Make sure you change those, okay? Because I could go onto the network and say, I got this server, what's the default admin name and password? And you can find it. And so if you don't change those, the adversaries can go do that and get access to your server or to your firewalls. So make sure that you change default usernames and passwords. Look into cyber insurance. This right here, incident response plan. You need to come up with an incident response plan. Make sure you have somebody to call when there is problems with your computer or your data, or you get that big splash on your screen saying you have been hacked. I have this, call this number to release it. Do not call that number. Call the first person on your incident response plan, okay? And then firewalls work too. They help keeping the adversaries out. So SBDC offers trainings like this one we had today, and they have offer counseling assistance. They help our people start up with their businesses. And if you go to this website, you all went there because you registered for these classes. We have tons of classes out there. Christopher will be doing one on starting up a business soon. We have a whole list of classes out there. Christopher also does e-commerce webinars, which are great if you're looking to set up your website. And then we have a YouTube channel. So most of our recordings go out to this YouTube channel. If you miss something, you can go back and look for them. And then we offer counseling, no-cost business counseling. We also have loan application assistance. So